case and make sure that we prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. But what we do is connect them with resources. So even though we don't have an advocate inherently in our office right now, we do work to connect them with resources out in the community. So we don't leave them hanging out on their own, even though we just don't have an advocate in our office.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Operation Public Safety Committee meeting. Today is Tuesday, September 6th. We're going to get started here. Kim, roll call, please.
Thank you. Council President Boyce.
Here.
Councilmember Fincher. Councilmember Kaur.
Here.
Councilmember Larmer.
Here.
Councilmember Michaud. Councilmember Thomas. Councilmember Troutner.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, we got 5 items on our agenda for tonight. So I'm going to ask for a motion for approval of the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Let the record show unanimous pass. We're going to move on to item number B, A, approval of the minutes from August 16th.
So moved. Second.
Okay, motion and second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Let the record show unanimous pass. We'll move on to item number B, payments of the bills. Motion, please.
So move. Second.
Are we together, guys? Come on.
Sorry.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Let the record show unanimous pass. We're going to move on to item number C, grant agreement with Washington State Administration Office, and Margaret is going to come. Hello.
Hello. Thank you. I'm Margaret Yetter. I'm the court administrator. And I have 2 things here for you today. The first is an agreement that we have with Washington State Administrative Office of the Courts, also known as AOC. When we refer to AOC, that's who we're talking about. And it's for a grant that we received to assist with our community court in the amount of $125,000. And Judge Franz was here just your last meeting and talked a little bit about what we're doing with community court. And I think at the time he also mentioned the fact that we had received state funding. So this money will be used to hire a part-time case manager / social worker, somebody that will be, we're hoping to be on site at the court 2 days a week, that would be there to be able to connect with people immediately, whether from the jail calendar or in the courtroom, and connect people with resources, set up a plan for them. There's also some additional funding that we could use for treatment and evaluation costs, in addition to, we've funded it on our own, a little like a food box, so when people come to our community court, we provide them, granola bars and water and, protein sticks and things like that. So this would cover those additional costs also. The money is only good through June 30th of 2023, so that's how long the grant is. There's been talk about whether or not it would be renewed and we could ask for it again, but at this time the state hasn't told us whether or not it's going to be allowed. So right now it would be just use it until the end of June and see what we can do.
So it's part-time, right?
Yeah,
And
we're looking at like 20 hours a week. So we're hoping 2 days a week actually on site in the court, and then the rest of the time for them to be available, whether it's by phone or by email, if a public defender or prosecutor wanted to reach out to them to talk about a specific person.
So everybody have accessibility. I was concerned about if I'm not there on a Tuesday, on a Wednesday, they're not there, but we'll still be able to reach out.
They'd be available. They've said they'd be available throughout the week, Monday through Friday.
So is it possible? This sounds like a great program. Is there any way we can get any type of feedback, how things are going, maybe a couple months?
Yeah, we're going to
tracking that or what?
Yeah, we're going to report monthly to AOC. So we have to report what we've done with the money, and if we're spending it on a social worker or any treatment we've provided, the number of people that they've met with. There's all kinds of data that we're going to be required to send to the state, so we can certainly come back and talk to you guys about it, let you know how it's doing maybe in 6 months.
So like a good program. Just interesting to see there's so much needed help out there, right?
Yeah, and just to be able to have somebody available, you never know when somebody's going to be ready to accept resources. So the fact that we could have somebody that could help somebody right there and on the spot, as opposed to making them come back in 2 weeks when we have community court.
Yep.
Sometimes the chances of seeing them again is slim. So we really hope that, the quicker we can get somebody in contact with the resources they need, the better success we'll have.
Councilmember Kaur?
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Margaret. So is this basically a temporary position, part-time?
Yeah.
Until June?
Yep.
And then we figure out if we want to continue or not, or if we get the funding?
Yeah, it gives us time to look and see if this is working. And the first option would be to go for the state if the state's going to continue to give us money. But then we've also talked about some other options within the city too, if this is successful, how we can move this forward.
Thank you.
That's my thought. We'll see how the data go, but if it's successful, the state don't have the funding and if it's working, we need to figure out a way to keep it
Yeah,
in place, right?
definitely,
So that'd
yes.
be great. So look forward to just see how things going, 3 or 4 months down the road. So.
Okay.
Okay, any other question, council member? Okay. I'm gonna ask for a motion, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to authorize the municipal court administrator to sign a grant agreement with the Washington State Administrative Office of the Courts in the amount of $125,000 to benefit Kent Community Court to amend the city budget accordingly and to authorize expenditure of the funds consistent with the terms of the grant agreement.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Let the record show unanimous pass.
Thank you.
And you get to see up there, Margaret, we have another grant agreement,
Yep.
please.
Yep, the next one is also with AOC, and this is to reimburse costs associated with the State versus Blake decision. So this, I'm sure you're familiar with, in February, the Supreme Court invalidated the crime of simple possession and made it unconstitutional. So going back to the beginning of these charges, which I think is 1971. So any previous convictions have been noted as void. So we have the job to go through and determine what cases in our court qualify for this that need to have the record vacated, and if they paid a fine, whether or not they'd be eligible to get the refund. So the state has allocated, again, 2 pots of money on this one. So they're calling the first one, they call it Blake 1 and Blake 2, but the first one is to reimburse cities and counties for any money that is spent doing this work. So the time that's spent going through the reports, setting cases for hearing, addressing the matters on the record, all of that. That's one pot of money, and we have $576,000 that's been allocated in that pot of money to reimburse us for any time spent the court, the prosecutors, and even the public defenders if they spend time working on this also. The second pot of money is to reimburse defendants that have paid legal financial obligations that qualify for a reimbursement. That pot of money is $497,000. We have not figured out what our process is going to be to refund that yet. We've been working with Michelle Walker and Tammy White, and we have a report that we're working at. There's, I think, over 7,000 cases that the prosecutor's office is reviewing to see which ones qualify. We're starting with vacating the records and making sure that the records are accurate, and then we're going to go to the next step, which is, figuring out how we're going to do refunds. This grant money is also only good through June 30th of 2023. At that time, the state's plan is to create what they're calling a refund bureau, and any money that we haven't spent would go to the state, and people would go to the state to get their refunds. So if we can get all the records vacated, that's the part that we have to do here at our court, and then depending on how long that takes, it may just be where defendants are referred to the state to get their refund.
Okay. Councilman Fincher, you have a question?
Thank you. Yes, since we don't know exactly how many cases, what's going to be involved, the time, for the first pot, is there a chance that if it exceeds the amount that has been allotted, we could go back for more, or no, we're pretty sure that that amount is going to cover any cost that we would incur?
Yeah, I do not anticipate us spending over $500,000 on our time. But there is money allocated, and the state has said if you go over in either one of these pots, if there's other courts that haven't used their funding, that they would dip into that. There's no guarantee of it, but we can certainly request it.
Thank you.
How do you define a simple possession? What is that?
Tammy? I knew I was going to get to call on Tammy.
She need to earn her keep.
I know, she loves this.
Hello, good afternoon, Tammy White, City Attorney.
Hey, like that
So
title.
the simple possession cases that Margaret is talking about are those where there isn't an intent element to the crime. So prior to State v. Blake, under Washington law, it was illegal to possess drugs. You didn't have to know that you possessed the drugs. You didn't have to intentionally possess the drugs. It was a crime just to have it on you. Our state Supreme Court stated that that was unconstitutional, and that is what they had overruled and then made invalid those prior convictions.
How much drug does a certain amount, or does it matter how much I have on me?
For the misdemeanor amount or the felony amount, if there was any law that made it without an intent element, it was unconstitutional. So whether it was felony level or misdemeanor level. Now, currently, at least until I think it's June or July of 2023, there is a knowledge element that's in the law, but that is set to sunset, I think, in June or July. So the hope is that our state legislature will take that issue back up in the next session.
Okay. Thank you. And Margaret, for the reimbursement, so who get reimbursed? Is it the city get reimbursed, the individual get reimbursed?
The city would get reimbursed.
It's the city.
Yeah, so we would work with finance if whatever hours the court had, the prosecutor's office, and then we would submit that on behalf of the city of Kent, and the money would come back to the city of Kent. So, and I've talked with Michelle Ferguson on this too, probably just go back in the general fund is what I'm guessing, unless Michelle wants to come up and talk about anything else.
No. I'm sorry, so as an individual, so there was no cost to me that it would get reimbursed back to me, will it?
No, it just
Okay.
goes back to the city
Back to the
because
city.
we're
Okay.
just working on behalf
Gotcha.
of the city. So we would just get reimbursed for the time spent processing these cases.
Okay, thank you. All right, have a motion, please.
Chair, I move to authorize the signing of the interagency reimbursement agreement with the Washington State Administration Office of the Courts in the total amount of $1,074,435 to amend the budget and to authorize expenditures of funds consistent with the terms of the agreement to reimburse costs incurred as a result of the State v. Blake decision.
Second.
Okay, motion is second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Let the record show unanimous pass. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Next is item E. I came here earlier, I saw this big box that said Anaconda on it. I thought there might have been an anaconda in it, but it wasn't that. So, Galen, gonna get up here, please? You didn't bring the box to show us?
I didn't bring the box, I'm sorry.
All right.
I'm Galen Hirschi. I'm the network engineering supervisor here at the city in the IT department. Basically, what we're bringing forward today is the city and Anaconda Networks entered into an agreement last year. And during that time, we have made multiple purchases through them. We have reached close to the mayor's $100,000 authority for contract purchases. And as a sideline, Anaconda provides hardware, software support for the mobility of our police department and our economic and community development vehicles. So modems, antennas, cabling, a lot of that goes into the cars for connectivity. So IT would like to obtain council's approval today to continue to use this agreement, continue to make select purchases for products and services from them throughout the term of the agreement and within, of course, our established budgets. Any questions?
Okay. No question, IT guru on the end down there? Okay. Okay, I'm going to ask for a motion, please.
Chair, I move to authorize staff to purchase products and services through Anaconda Networks, Inc. under the terms of a purchase agreement dated September 1, 2021, if those purchases are within established budgets previously approved by council and made during the agreement's terms, and to ratify all prior acts consistent with this motion.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Let the record show unanimous pass. Thank you,
very
sir.
much.
Appreciate it. Okay, we're going to move on to item F. And no like Sara Wood coming up here, but we have the chief.
That's correct. Thank you. I am not Sara Wood. Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the council. I'm here today on behalf of Sara to seek your approval to authorize Mayor Ralph to sign the interagency agreement with the Washington Traffic Safety Commission regarding the Walker Roller Safety Grant Project on Pacific Highway South. As you may be aware, this is year 2 of this funding. We had funding for this project last year, and it's continuing. The grant is purposed with reducing serious injury and death of walkers and rollers. If you're wondering what rollers were, I had to look at it, bicyclists and all of that, on Pacific Highway South. The goal will be accomplished through law enforcement training on walker roller safety and enforcement, high visibility enforcement campaigns, pre- and post-observational surveys to gather data on effectiveness, and then public education through social media and traditional media campaigns and safety literature that will be produced in 12 different languages. Traffic engineering will be a component of this. The grant requires us to review things such as signage, lighting needs, et cetera, for this area. The grant award is for $101,000 and will fund staffing for the project. The operational area is on the south end from Federal Way all the way north to Tukwila on State Route 99, also known as Pacific Highway South. If approved, this grant will commence October 1st and will run through September 30th of next year. Any questions?
How did the first year go? Do we know? This is the second year, right? So do we have any data on that first year?
I'm sure Sarah might, but I do not.
That's good. All right, that's fine. Any question for the chief, guys? Hey, seeing I'm going to ask for a motion, please.
Mr. Chair, I move to authorize the mayor to sign an interagency agreement with the Washington Traffic Safety Commission accepting funding for the city's Pacific Highway South Walker and Roller Safety Program, amend the budget, and authorize expenditure of the funds consistent with the interagency agreement.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Let the record show unanimous pass.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay. Item G. Assistant G. How you doing, sir?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Eric Hemmen, I'm the Assistant Chief of Investigations right now. I'm coming before you to ask for a motion to authorize the mayor to sign the First Amendment to the Master Services and Purchasing Agreement with Axon to add in Officer Safety Plan 7+ Premium Edition, activate the Records Management subscription, purchase associated hardware and services, and extend the agreement through September 30th of 2029. In the total amount not to exceed $4.5 million, subject to the final terms and conditions acceptable to the city attorney and police chief. Right now, the city has a 5-year contract with Axon for our body-worn cameras that's set to expire in September of 2024. Our records management system is in need of an overhaul. Axon Records has that system that our information technology department has researched and thought that would be the best management system that we can go with. Rather than having two different contracts, I've been working with Axon to try to get it all into one, to make it one payment. Right now they would add in, with this extension, we would add in 6 more cameras, so we'd have 166 cameras. It would cover every police officer in the agency. It also adds in replacing our tasers. Usually they're a 5-year cycle, and we'll be at the 5-year cycle in 2024. It also adds in 3 different upgrades of our body-worn cameras. About every 2.5 years, they'd switch out ours and give us brand new ones. And then it adds us into the OSP 7+ Premium program, which gives all the officers unlimited transcription. So when an officer is watching their body-worn camera, all they have to do is press a button and it'll automatically transcribe what they're seeing on the screen onto the left-hand side so they can cut and paste. It also has a feature in there where if they want to know when they gave the Miranda warnings, they could type in the search function Miranda and it'll take them right to that section of the video. So it's kind of it's a new thing that they have. They've been working on it for years. It's finally at about 95%, which is pretty good for transcription. So with all that, the cost now would be a little bit more than what we're paying for the last 2 years of this contract to extend it out to have 7 full years because their prices keep going up every year. They average about, when we first bought these cameras to be part of the OSP 7+ system for each officer, it was about $2,400 per officer. When we bought cameras last year, it's up to $2,500. This year, it's about $3,000, and they've been averaging about $200 every 2 years of going up. So we wanted to lock in a price. And then it also adds in for we would pay for the records management system. We wouldn't start paying on that until we actually go live with the system, which they're figuring at the end of next year, beginning of 2024, before we'd have to pay that payment.
Can you tell me a little about when you said the record management? What did that mean?
Records management is the system that the whole department uses. One is the system where officers write the reports. And then the detectives have their case management system in there. And then all of that would go into our record section. That's how they keep all of our reports. There'll also be a tie coming up where our jail will also be coming up with a different system that ties into Axon, so it's all one system.
So, like, if you pull someone over and I know you identify them, and do they keep track? Say, Bill, we pulled him over and got stuff about him in that system, or I'm just trying to.
No. So, this is only a system where after an officer goes to a call, when they write a case report, that goes into this system. So everything that's in a case report will be in that system.
Gotcha.
And there's also a link, an integration between sector. If we give you a ticket out on the street, that there'll be an integration between Axon records and sector. And so all that data will be pulled in there. So it'll be able to track both.
And you report on the data in there, some pull reports and so on.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let's see, Councilwoman Larmer, followed by Fincher.
Thank you. Just a couple points of clarity. So we have 2 more years left in our current contract.
We do.
But this is proposing, this would take both the rate lock on the price and the records management through 2029. Is that what I'm
Correct.
reading? Okay, great.
Yes.
Just want to clarify that. So that's all for me. Thank you.
Councilman Fincher?
Thank you, Council President. So we have access 24/7 to the data, right? Do they simply manage the data for us along with holding it? Do we own the data?
We own the data. They store it.
Okay. Okay, good. Thank you. I have one more question.
Yeah.
So I believe at one point there were 2 different systems depending on when they would write tickets in the vehicles.
So that's the sector. That's the state patrol system. We still write tickets out of that, but there's going to be there'll be an integration between Axon records and sector, so that data would be pulled in.
And so is it also going to speed up the process for writing that ticket?
For the ticket on the street, no. It will speed up the process of officers writing a case report, but it won't impact on the street. When you write a ticket on the street, it's pretty quick anyways, because you scan the driver's license, you scan the registration, all that stuff populates by itself, and then it's just a matter of writing
Hit the print button.
what the infraction's for, how much it is, and then print it.
Yeah.
So it's pretty quick.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see here. Councilmember Trotman, followed by Core.
Thank you, Council President. Will you remind me, do these get paid for out of our red light camera fund?
Yeah.
Yes, they do.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Core?
Thank you, Council President. So do we, so you mentioned that they store records management. Have we looked at their security and any privacy issues there? If they get, I'm sure they have great security systems, but just kind of keeping it with all the cybersecurity issues happening across the globe.
Yeah, and I don't have the exact security system that they have, but it's the same one that they have with their body-worn cameras. And when we researched them a year ago and we've looked at them again, they have the top level of security that you can have.
Thank you.
Great questions. Any more questions? No more light up. Okay, cool. I'm asking for a motion, please.
Chair, I move to authorize the mayor to sign the First Amendment to the Master Service and Purchasing Agreement with Axon to add Officer Safety Plan 7+ Premium Edition, activate the Records Management subscription, purchase associated hardware and services, and extend the agreement through September 30th, 2029 in the amount not to exceed $4.5 million, subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the city attorney and police chief.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Let the record show unanimous pass. Thank you, sir. Last but not least, Michelle. Always bringing us good news.
Okay, good afternoon, Council. I'm Michelle Ferguson, and I will be presenting the July 2020 monthly financial report. All right, on the first slide, I've highlighted the sales tax revenue. Sales tax continues to come in very strong. If this trend continues, we could receive over $26 million in sales tax in the general fund in 2022, which would be about $1 million more than we received in 2021 in the general fund. On the next slide, I've highlighted utility tax. It's not necessarily what's happened in 2022, but when you compare 21 to 22, you'll see there was a large uptick in July of 2021, and that is when we moved the cable utility tax from the IT fund into the general fund because we found out that you're not allowed to receipt a tax directly into an internal service fund. So it was a lump sum for the first 6 months of 2021, and that's why we had that uptick in that 1 month. But overall, the revenues for utility taxes are coming in slightly over budget, and they're looking just fine. So on this slide, we're going to compare year to year of July from 20 to 2022. So if you'll notice up at the top, sales tax is has about $1.45 million variance, which is slightly over 10% higher than it was in 2021 to 2022, and we're already at 73% of budget. So I took a look at, sales tax is kind of broken out into 5 different sections when we get the information from the state. So construction, manufacturing, and wholesaling, and then retail, food services, and other. So the one category that has had the largest uptick from this point in time in 2020 to 2021 is manufacturing and wholesaling, and it's gone up by $711,000 when you compare the year-to-year information. So that one is a bit surprising because normally it does not have that much of a variance from year to year. The other one that is has quite a bit of an uptick is retailing, and that is up $367,000 from year-to-year comparison. The other category in revenues that's seeing a nice increase is going to be charges for services. That is $1.55 million higher than in 2022 at this time than it was in 2021, and they're at 68.1% of budget, so higher than what you typically, if you were just a straight line, you would expect revenues to be at 58.3, so we're slightly over, and that is mostly for ECD, but Parks also is seeing an uptick in their revenues. The one that continues to see a downward trend is fines and forfeitures, and that is just due to lower criminal and civil penalties that we've been issuing and collecting. Under expenditures, I mentioned last month that fire contracted services is expected to come in over budget, and that's because there was a payment missing in 2021 that we paid in 2022. So likely we'll have a budget change for that at the end of the year. And then the 2 other departments that have a kind of higher variance than normal are Parks and Police, and they're still coming in well under budget, or at least Parks is, and Police is still under budget. Those are due to Parks now kind of, hopefully we're towards the end of the pandemic, and so they're starting to have more program costs, and they're bringing the revenues with the expenditures, so that is a positive thing. And then Police, those can be attributed to the increase in salaries that we had at the end of last year. So we've put estimated actuals in this report, so kind of not really shown on this one, but just so you know that there are a couple pages where we've estimated actuals, and those will change from month to month. Just as we get more information, those trends will change as years goes on. But the Capital Resources Fund, right now we are seeing a very nice trend continuing of the sales tax in the Capital Resources Fund and REIT. Right now, we were budgeted to use $1 million fund balance in 2022, but early estimates are showing that we'll actually have almost $6.5 million in going into the fund balance at the end of the year because of those. So about sales tax is about $1.5 million over budget estimated to be, and REIT is already $3 million over budget at this time, and hopefully that'll continue through the end of the year and be even more. On this slide, I've highlighted fleet services. They were budgeted to use $1.3 $7 million in fund balance, but because of the long lag time from ordering to delivery, they're not going to expend as much as they had planned, but the cars are on order. They just likely aren't going to come in until April or June of next year. They've had some long lead times. And lastly, the property insurance was highlighted. As you can see, the year-to-date expenditures are higher than what we're estimating the actuals to be, and that is because the property tax renewal happens on a July to June basis, so we got that new renewal in July, and we will then accrue those expenditures, half of them into 2023. So those expenditures, half of them will go away. But it's still anticipated that it will go slightly over budget. We have put a 15% inflator in the budget for the renewal, but they actually came in at 17%. So it's slightly over budget. Any questions?
No serious concern. I don't see any. Do you have any?
Nope.
Things kind of moving in the right direction. A little surprising. That's
just
great.
hoping that trend continues.
Yeah, especially with the rate. That's great. Any thoughts, Councilmember? We good?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. And that brings us to an end, I think.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, we're done until 5 o'clock. Thanks, guys. Take a break.
Put it on that clock.